everybody, welcome back to another beastie episode of KHANTEHNT.
KHANTEHNT!
There it is. Welcome everybody. Today is the first episode of KHANTEHNT where we have a special guest with me and Digi. It's Tom Oliver on one of these sides of me.
I've made it. Resident not furry, despite popular opinion
Popular
on Twitter.
demand, popular desire.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
but
not
resident
happening.
BEASTARS
No.
expert who's read like everything,
sure.
knows everything about it compared to us.
That's
I mean,
true.
Yeah.
The new chapter is coming out tomorrow. I'm hype. I'm ready.
And it's up to chapter like
week's chapter was a
120 or
banger.
something.
Or 156 is
Yeah,
coming
okay.
up.
There you go. There you
I'm
go.
amazed you read it so fast, because I know that the way Tom discovered BEASTARS was me and May were watching the first episode. One of us said, the main character's kind of like Tom, and I said, you should tell him that, or I'll tell him that, and then she just immediately was like, you should watch BEASTARS, the main character's like you, and then like 4 days later, Tom had read the entire manga or something like that. What
Pretty
happened?
much how it went. Well, I watched episode 1, and I was like, this is cool. I don't know why May thinks I'm like the main character. It's like one's like socially awkward, and the other's like a whore. So I'm like,
Both
I
sound
wonder
like
which
you.
one of the. So I was just like, okay, that's cool. Good to know, May.
It's more that Lugosi has the same energy as you. He's a tall, quiet,
Dour,
you know,
depressing,
kinda
sad sack, piece of shit, asshole.
hard on himself.
Well, that's
Pretty
true.
much.
But yeah,
a
he
beast
does
rages
give me
inside,
certain.
yeah.
He has certain vibes of just that tall. Just think of him as tall, dark, and handsome, and that's how you like him. How about
He is that.
I'll take that. I'll take that. It's acceptable. But yeah, then the second episode, it was like kind of a cliffhanger. I was like, I want to see where this goes. So I was just like, I'll just read the manga because I don't feel like waiting. And then 10 hours later, I was caught up. I was like, oh, that went by fast. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Goodbye, Saturday. Hello, new obsession, I guess. It's pretty good. I dig it a lot.
So we covered the first 4 episodes a while back. We're not gonna bother talking about like describing what the fuck the show's about or any of that. You should have already seen that, or you should be watching the show if you're watching an episode about episodes 5 through 9. But
Indeed,
here we
sure.
are. We watched all these 5 episodes, and specifically, we held off. We were gonna do 8, but Tom had a premonition that episode 9 was probably gonna be a point where things start to ramp up in the storyline. And so we held off, and now we're here. And indeed, things have begun to ramp up, at least insofar as they've introduced some new factions that are outside of the school. It feels like I assume we're finally starting to like leave the school as the main setting of the story, or at least add in the real world as more of a setting. Would that be accurate?
Starting now, there's like 3 like parts in the story that I think like radically shift things. This is the first one. This is when Haru, the main character, gets kidnapped by a group, the Shishingumi, which is like these fucking like weird lions who like stole her to feed her to their boss.
In case you don't know, Tom, shishi means lion in Japanese, so it's a pun.
Oh.
There's
See?
a lot of
Shishi
puns like
means
that.
lion. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Fantastic. It's great. So yeah, that was like the big kind of cliffhanger-esque ending. And you find out that like Louis wants to do something, but he can't because he's trying to become the B-star, and like he's kind of has this deal going on with the mayor. And you find out about his backstory. He was like going to be sold in the back alley market, or the black market, as the subs in the show is calling it.
There's the dark market, which is totally distinct from the black market, and those are totally separate enterprise. Was that just a different translation between my?
I think it's just a different translation. The first translation in the manga was just the ghetto, which I thought was hilarious. And then at some point they're like, "Wait a minute,
man.
we shouldn't be translating it like this." And I'm like, "Haha."
Black market
no,
makes a
keep
lot
going.
more sense.
Yeah.
Man, people be selling animals and shit up in the ghetto. It's fucked up, man.
Yeah,
it's fucked
don't
up.
go
Well,
down there.
I think that the introduction of the black market was definitely the most interesting thing in these episodes in terms of what it like speaks to for this society that we've already been told over and over that carnivores can't eat meat. Nobody can eat meat in this world. It's like a heinous crime. Except that there's totally people eating meat all day, dude, in the fucking black market. But it's all donated from hospitals and morgues, I think they said.
Yes, for the most part.
So, just when animals naturally die, they take the meat, sell it on the black market, and this is attributed, at least by some of the characters, to how peace is kept in the city. That the reason carnivores aren't constantly lusting for meat of everyone around them is that they can just go and fucking eat meat on the black market when they feel like it.
It's,
I mean, if
We're
jumping
introduced to the black market.
We're
introduced to it by way of a guy selling his fingers, like some homeless-looking dude in an alleyway trying to offer his fingers to young carnivores.
I gotta say, I loved that moment, and I thought it was such a kind of a powerful way to jump into this idea of like selling flesh, where there's just a dude straight up saying, like, here are my fingers with tags on each of them for how much each of them cost. Like, just give me like what was like, I don't know, like 700,000 yen, which is like $7,000 or something, or whatever, some denomination.
I think it was only like 70,000 because they were talking about
you're right, which is like
their pocket
$700
change.
or
They can
something.
pool it all together and like get his finger.
So you
And
could
two of
buy
them
this
do.
dude's finger and eat it off his hand to sate your desires. And I mean, like you were saying, if we're just jumping into the topics, which is the most interesting part anyway, we could talk about like the relationships and whatnot. That stuff's pretty by the numbers. But the black market stuff, this idea that in this world, I mean, there are many places throughout these episodes where we're getting way more into this idea. Up to this, episodes 1 through 4, the only time that like eating each other came up was that like someone's like lost control of themselves, or Bill was like doping with rabbit blood or whatever. But now we're touching on this larger concept about how you don't understand, like the carnivores, these kids who are growing up. You don't understand, kids, how precarious the balance of society is, and we need to take drastic measures to make sure that the carnivores don't run out of control. And like, I mean, just while we're getting into one of the amazing examples was that the mayor, who's a lion, he ripped out all his teeth, replaced them with like normal carnivore or herbivore looking dentures, and got tons of plastic surgery to make himself cuter and more, less intimidating looking, so that he could become mayor, specifically as a play to like keep the peace between herbivores and carnivores. All the while, he knows that there are these underground, basically human trafficking, but whatever, animal trafficking rings, where they specifically are harvesting people and allowing them to be killed because it's for this nebulous idea of the greater good. Which, and like considering that these are not human beings, these are animals, they have their own desires. Maybe it's sort of reasonable what they're doing in this world. I don't know. And I mean, I'm sure you look like an asshole for saying that, but yeah.
Here's the thing. I think that this show, what makes the meat eating idea so potent as an allegory is that it can stand for all kinds of different real world things.
Yeah.
Sure. And like in the case of the black market, it feels like it's about drugs. Particularly, the guy offering them in a shady alleyway, like, you could buy pieces of my body, and but to like Bob, that was his name, right? The fucking
Bill the tiger.
Bill. To Bill, he's like, oh, this is like the step towards becoming an adult. And to Lugosi, he's like, once you've done this, there's no going back. It's like, I don't want to have a taste for meat, basically. And it kind of reminded me of just the idea that, like, for me personally at least, who smokes a lot of weed, the main reason I do it is because it's like a help you get through, help you get through the day. You feel a little better. You feel like more relaxed, and you have to obtain it in this shady way, at least in places where it's still illegal, such as where I live. But like it felt like such a strong allegory for why drugs are in society, and but there's lots of other things that it represents as well, like with Lugosi wanting to eat Haru. I take it as more of a what was that?
I said clear, like sexual overtones, and the overlap in his mind is clear. It's clear.
It's definitely like a metaphor for rape, in my view. Or just like sexual power, but I'll get into more of that later.
But hey, before we leave this topic, though, I just wanted to say that I totally agree with you, and I forget if it's a quote from either like one of the Godfather movies or maybe like The Sopranos or something like that, like some mob movie. And mobs generally they fund their operations by doing things that aren't legal, that they're willing to provide to people. And it was like there's like some line, I think from one of the Godfathers or something, that's like as long as there's something that in this case they're like that men want, that mankind wants, and like the powers that be will not allow them to have, there will always rise up people to serve those needs and to give them people the things that they're not allowed to have otherwise, whether it's drugs, sex, prostitution in real life, or eating of animal flesh in BEASTARS.
And in this world, it's almost taken as a matter of course, even by the government itself, because like whereas a lot of a lot of the things that we could say are human nature, we in our society we try to say like, oh well, you decide to do these bad things, but like in the context of this show, it is with like, these are carnivores, how can you ask them to not eat meat, you know?
Right.
It's like, I think that the reason that the animal characters were chosen in this show is that we can really go into a lot of depth on things that if humans were doing this, it would seem too evil, you know, like the idea that Lugosi, like if this was humans and Lugosi was just constantly holding back his desire to rape Haru, then we would not think of him as a good guy, you know, but because he's a carnivore and we understand what he's going through and we can relate to his struggle to try to control these urges, it reads better, you know, and I think that
it's that degree of separation.
Right, and it allows the story to go into some really dark places where, you know, again, themes like drug use or human trafficking or all this stuff, like, the show is, it's honestly quite dark and somewhat realistic with some of this shit, in spite of the fact that it's like a fictional fantasy universe with all these distinct rules and all that kind of shit going on, so... Yeah, it's interesting.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And you know, while we're talking about just I don't think there'll be another time to bring this up, but on the question of like eating each other and providing for services, that one little vignette at the beginning of like episode 7, I think, or whatever, where we just see that one chicken girl who is so proud of giving her chicken or her chicken eggs to the meat eaters because she, you know, it's like chicken's pride. She works so hard to make them, you know, nutritious and tasty for everybody. I just love that whole little side story about that character.
Yeah,
the
manga has a lot of chapters that are just one-off stories like that.
Oh yeah.
And that was just like one example of like, that was so far I think that's the only one they've adapted, and it was funny because I remember reading that chapter. And I was like, "There's no way this is gonna make it into the anime. It's so obtuse." But no, they do it, and I'm like, "All right, I didn't expect it, but there you go."
Yeah, I'm glad they did, because it was specifically a question that that May had been bringing up, like, why are they allowed to eat eggs but not milk?
Right.
Like, I don't understand. They have soy milk but eggs. There you go. The chickens literally have pride in giving eggs to the meat eaters.
Maybe the cow lobby is like way more uptight than the chickens or something, and they, you know, you have to get agreement, I guess.
I don't know if milk is banned as well. I know the herbivores have soy milk. I think the carnivores might have regular milk though, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while.
I would guess.
I mean, what would be the point of that? Like, they both carnivores and herbivores drink the same milk. Like, they both would grow up with milk.
Well, you know, I mean, technically speaking, while we're on the subject, like, actually, most mammals, most species, including humans, originally like stopped. Like, we had an enzyme or something. Being lactose intolerant is actually the natural state for adult mammals in general. But something changed with humans, and now like we are more used to drinking milk, even though we're not really kind of supposed to, biologically speaking. Right. So maybe that's maybe, part of it. I don't know. Yeah,
maybe them drinking soy milk has nothing to do with the whole meat thing. They just drink soy milk because
they're just better than us.
They're just their beta soy boys. That's their problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, speaking of soy boys, there's a lot of cuckoldry going on in this show, I've noticed.
Unfortunately.
Because we've got... So one of the things we learn that I did not see coming is that Louis is one of the many people who is regularly fucking Haru. To an extent where it seems like they kind of have more of a relationship. They've been going at it for a long time.
Yep.
It doesn't seem like Louis realizes that she fucks lots of other guys.
No, I don't know about that. He makes one passing comment.
I'm pretty sure he does.
He makes one comment
because like he's not expecting a relationship out of it, because in this episode
he's already engaged or something, right?
He's engaged to somebody else.
But it seemed like he was. There was like a line where he like had sensed that Lugosi was into Haru, and it seemed like he was like kind of like, oh, he's trying to get between me and Haru, and I was like, well. Do you even think of that as an exclusive? Like, do you care if he fucks Haru? Everybody fucks Haru.
Well,
like,
if you
that's the interesting thing with like the last couple episodes in that up to 9 is that like you realize that while you initially think that Louis would treat Haru like he treats everybody else, like a stepping stone to becoming the Beastar and like improving his own social standing, like when she gets kidnapped, he realizes that like the right thing to do is to go get her. And so you start to realize, oh yeah, he actually does kind of, and like maybe even he's realizing it at the time that like, oh, I care about her more than I let on, you know, because like she has said that she, like one of the time, like in the flashback they're talking about this, and like he's saying how he has a fiance, and she's like, well, I just want love, and he's like, well, I can't give you that, and you knew that going into this. So like clearly there was distance at the beginning, but as time's gone on, they've become closer.
It's funny, like you say that maybe he was realizing in that moment, but I feel like I had realized already, and I don't know why. I don't know what it was about his interactions that had already clued me in to think like he cares about her like too much for what this relationship is supposed to be. So maybe that's why I just didn't maybe that's why I saw it as like a more serious relationship, just because like whether he internalized it that way or not, to me it was obvious, you know, that he needs something from this girl. And she obviously is having the realization you're describing as well, that she cares more about him than she lets on. Or maybe she's always cared about him that much, but because of the fact that he told her, like, this can never be something serious, essentially, is why she fucks around with other guys. You know, I wonder if even it's partly to spite him. I have no idea. I don't know what the complexities of emotions we're going to get into are. Tom knows, so he can
I know already. Everything. I'm a genius.
Yeah. you know, one impression I have of the show in general, I mean, it feels very much kind of like a lot of the stories we see are characters have a set nature. Like when we meet the character, what was her name? When we meet Juno. Like, Juno is the gray wolf girl who appears in episode 6 or whatever, in the drama club with the other characters. Like, she is, everything that happens with her is obviously set up to be the, like, okay, Lugosi, if you're gonna try to get with Haru, there's gonna be all these problems, like, it's not gonna work, obviously you're incompatible, etc. But here's a girl who's, like, literally perfect for you, you just have to, like, and she likes you too, yeah, like, she's the obvious choice, go with her. And clearly the narrative is taking us on this, like, he could go for the easy route, but he's, you know, he loves Haru. He's gonna probably take the much harder path and try to make that work.
Something interesting that's happened so far, because like she is the new girl Juno is transparently in love with him. Everybody else seems to notice. He, of course, being denser than all fuck, has not noticed. And it seemed to me like where the plot was obviously going to go is in the direction of like he finds out she has feelings for him, and then when he realizes he doesn't have feelings for her, that's what makes him realize he really is in love with Haru. It actually doesn't go that route. He still doesn't realize. He's realized that he really cares about Haru for totally other reasons, and she meanwhile is like, I'm going to get this dude, I'm going to do whatever I can to get him. I don't know if she's going to become a villain or what, like, because I knew that episode 9 something crazy was supposed to happen, since that's why we were holding off on watching it. So I was like, is she going to, like, eat Haru or something? Like, is she going to fucking do some crazy machinations? But yeah, I didn't expect her to have such a... there's a lot of moments throughout this show where characters, when we see their other side, it's usually surprising, you know? This girl who's acting all cute and innocent suddenly pins Louis, our alpha boy, the guy of the school, and she just, like, pins his ass down, and of course, since she's a wolf, he cannot overpower her. He's just, like, totally helpless.
Is she actually stronger than him, do you think? I mean, based on their size...
Yeah.
You think so?
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
He couldn't move. He was trying to throw her off.
Yeah. Louis' whole thing is that like he's pissed because he kind of like wants to have a role of a carnivore in society. Like he wants to be a leader. He wants to be like, you know, renowned. But like herbivores are just weaker. They're just weaker. And like one of the themes that like the show explores and like it becomes more clear as it goes on is that carnivores are just better. They're just better at like being leadership roles. Like that's why the mayor is a carnivore and things like that. And he's like, you know, he wants to be what he isn't, and that's like one of his big hang-ups, and why Legacy pisses him off so much, because Legacy has all this natural strength that he's working to get, and he can't have it.
I'm not saying this to sound controversial or anything, but I do think that this is also meant to comment on like male-female dynamics in real life. You know, like women are just weaker than men to an extent where like even a weak man could usually overpower a weak...
Not all! Everybody, listen to me! Not all!
It's true. Almost all... There's been studies saying that, like, almost all men are stronger than almost all women.
I mean,
like,
that's still hashtag not all, Digi.
Hashtag not all. Hashtag not all. But you are literally correct. You are literally correct.
I am almost weaker than May. So I am one of those not all men who is stronger than all women, probably.
Well,
I'm sure that number's gone up in the last couple decades. There's a reality that,
like, when it comes to like upper body strength, they say something like, I mean, because that's like a male speciality compared to women. It's like even men who like never exercise a day in their life, just like on average, are just stronger than a woman, like your average like I wouldn't say like pro bodybuilder woman, but like a seriously active like fit woman or something. So I mean yeah, these are just realities of biology. So I mean that's definitely part of it. Yeah.
Again, it's something that the show can explore without having to make it literally men and women, because we have this other dichotomy that, you know, is something that we humans do not have in our society, and yet they use it to reflect like tons of things that humans do have in our society, which is,
I mean, it's kind of like Star Trek in that way. It's using allegories to like get past your natural defenses for things and let you explore things with nuance that you might otherwise be resistant to.
Indeed. It's the right way to do it.
Indeed.
Well, I mean,
let's just indeed 4 times now.
That's my favorite
the best word.
I was surprised to see. So when we last left our heroes, they had just had like the big fight at the end of episode 4, where like on stage in front of the whole school, there was like blood was shed. Bill and Lugosi, and then Lewis came out and saved everybody because all this stuff about using blood doping, et cetera, et cetera. I was surprised to see now with episode 5. Basically, that just is it doesn't matter. Like, Bill's not even a bad guy anymore. They've literally just gotten over it instantly, which I guess is fine. They have the token scene where Lewis is like, oh, the audience loved it. We'll pretend that's what was supposed to happen, and we'll all just move past it. And, like, sure, we see that Bill later on is, like, interested in eating meat. He wants to buy, like, that antelope's finger or whatever. But, like, from a character perspective, there's, like, almost no consequences to Bill's character, at least yet. Maybe something will come of it, but I was surprised how easily they slip back into, I mean, Bill's just another, even though, again, in these episodes, he hurts Lewis, just while training, just scratches the fucker's hand up. Yeah. I'm just surprised that there isn't more, I don't know, immediate feedback. I really
think of Bill as basically like a douchebag jock kind of character.
Yeah.
There's an amazing piece of dialogue where he admits to being a bad fuck.
Oh yeah, right.
I don't know if that was his intention, but he's talking about how he's got this girlfriend who he loves to fuck her, but she tells him like, you're so rough, it's like I don't get anything out of it, it's all you. And he's like saying that like, yeah, she was saying some dumb shit like that, but man, I love fucking that bitch so much.
She's got such great stripes on her ass. What a great
yeah, exactly.
What a great thing.
But it's just funny to think that's just I think that's just the kind of guy he is, you know. He's the kind of guy who he's all about being like this hyper masculine, like he strikes me as like the douchebag football jock, except he's in theater because he probably wants to pick up chicks.
Probably true. I was wondering this. Now Tom knows probably what happens later, so perhaps he shouldn't comment. But it's like, the reason that I was interested in that is because right now all my suspicions were that Bill was the guy who killed the alpaca who died in episode 1 or whatever, and based on that, I expected there to be like something going on. But the fact that he's kind of being downplayed, at least temporarily, makes me feel less likely that he was the murderer. But I don't know. Maybe that'll be proved wrong. Maybe it'll be proved right. I don't know. That's just why I expected
and I'll just bring this up and Tom can expand on it, I guess, because I've been in some of the BEASTARS threads on and it seems like a lot of new characters will eventually be introduced to this story. So like, I do think that a lot of the characters who are at school probably only have really major roles in these earlier episodes, or will fall off in relevance, or will change their relevance in some way. But like, there's tons of characters and factions and other types of bad guys who are going to get involved. So I would imagine that it's probably part of a bigger conspiracy.
Sure.
Well,
Tom,
I mean, I won't. I can confirm that there are way more characters that get involved as the show continues. Like, the scope is going to continue to expand. Like, obviously, the end of episode 9, things started to get more complicated, and as the story progresses, it will get more involved. You'll see more of the world. There'll be more characters introduced. Like, the second major thing that happens shifts like a lot of the location and stuff. So it's there's a lot of good shit to look forward to if they keep adapting more after this season. Because it just goes on and gets bigger and bigger and crazier and crazier.
But has
tons of cool shit.
Can you just tell me, and this will just be, I guess, to entice people to read the manga, like, is that central original mystery like addressed anytime soon, or is that like the carrot on the stick through the whole series?
No, the murderer is eventually found out. That plot thread is eventually closed in a fucking pretty cool way, and it's pretty dope. And like, the second like super hype moment is how that gets resolved, and like how it closes a couple of plot threads.
What are the odds of that happening within this season?
Basically 0.
Okay.
Well, too bad.
Read the manga.
Is this 24 or 12 episodes? 12, right?
I think it's 12, right?
Okay.
12 or 13 or something, whatever. I don't think it's.
They can't
Maybe
keep
they'll
this
continue
up.
it.
I was gonna say again, the animation was on par with the first, I don't know, batch of episodes or whatever. Generally looks really good 3D animation. That one sequence where it's almost like a dream sequence where Haru is like, she's like walking through a field. It's beautifully animated into like a watercolor style
animation.
Yeah. Before she wakes up and like is having sex with Lewis, which was, that was a cool. I guess it's like a metaphor for her.
It was like a visual metaphor for what she was feeling.
It was tasteful. It was beautiful. Kind of like the best looking section of this batch of episodes. And
I meant to look up
it.
who animated that.
Yeah,
I would love
I like how they're experimenting with visual styles, because like I think it was episode 9, the beginning, when they have Louis' flashback. It's in a different visual style as well. Probably not as effective as the watercolor animation, but it's still cool how like they take visuals into account when like adjusting for tone and stuff like that.
I mean, and I'll say, like, even just glancing at the manga, like, I understand why there will be some people who just think this anime is just like not worth it at all, because the manga is gorgeous. Particularly really now, like the artwork is just so expressive in a way that 3D animation cannot be. And not to say that it can't be as expressive, just that it can't be expressive that way. And so they really have to make the anime something very different in how they're going to express those emotions, and they do a great job of coming up with tons of unique ways, even if the show does look a little weird just because of the faces. It's just a little, sometimes I just can't look at them for too long.
There's one of the things that I'm glad that they started doing in episode 9 that happens all the time in the manga is like they'll have like weird like funny expressions, like those weird just like, you know, when you have like tiny small panels of like characters' faces, like giant eyes, like
when they do like a cutaway to the 2D drawing style,
and they don't do that very often in the anime because like they're 3D models. But like in episode 9, they have a quick shot of Legacy and Haru, like when he tries to confess to her, and they both react with like this weird disgust kind of like expression, and they cut to 2D drawings of that for a second to have that in there, and then before going back to the regular scene, because there's expressions like that, especially with Louis. Louis has amazing like disgusted expressions constantly throughout the manga as like shit happens to him. And, like, that just isn't really represented.
The medium of manga really lends itself more to doing different stuff like that. Obviously, the way 3D isn't going to. So I could definitely see people who had read the manga having some translation. There's always going to be a loss of information when you translate mediums. So, understandable. But luckily, they do a great job with what they've got for this show. So
one of the things that I'm excited though is because like Studio Orange, obviously they did Hoseki no Kuni, and that was like a gorgeous show. And it's interesting because like Hoseki no Kuni also had a very unique, expressive style. Kind of like BEASTARS manga did, like not exactly the same style, but in terms of like going off the beaten path in terms of like house anime look, you know, they're both very unique visually, the source material. But one of the things that Hoseki no Kuni did really well is like the choreography for the fight scenes and leveraging the strength of 3D. And without spoiling anything, there will be some moments in the manga, in the story, that hopefully they get to, that will take advantage of 3D, that could take advantage of 3D in the same way.
I think they will. I mean, that scene between Bill and Lugosi in episode 4, I thought was incredible with the camera movement.
It was so good.
And the way they were moving around. I look forward to it. Agreed. Hoseki no Kuni has some amazing looking action sequences in it. So, big props to Orange for doing the best 3D TV anime that is coming out this decade.
That seems to be confirmed.
Not even a contest.
So we could talk about like the character arc and development between Louis and Lugosi, which I thought was interesting. I like the way that their relationship has continually changed over the course of the show. That like there's so many complex emotions where they both have reasons to like and hate each other. They both kind of have to change their impressions as it goes on. And in I think episode 9, we introduced this background plot that there's a bunch of carnivores who are planning to attack Louis, because they fucking hate him, and they're like, he's gonna ruin our reputation, the reputation of carnivores, so we're gonna lynch that motherfucker. And so Lugosi's like, when he finds this out, like his thoughts are like, man, Louis is a great guy. Like, I can't let this happen because there's so many good things about this dude. Like, he's still visiting his dead friend, 3 months later, you know, like he has all these, and granted, I think some of his assumptions about Louis' character are wrong. I think that the reason he visits that guy has more to do with some kind of like inner vendetta that he's protecting, you know, but it's like he really respects Louis and even kind of wants him to be with Haru until at the end of that episode when Louis is like, I'm not going to go after her. He's like, well, I'm going to go after her and I'm going to take her from your ass, bitch. And, you know,
it
just
challenges
all the ways that they...
expectation from the beginning of the show, like, or the beginning of the episode. It's what I really liked about the story and the characterization in general is that there are so many times in the show where they'll start setting something up and you're like, I know this trope, and then they'll twist it a little bit and make it a little bit more interesting. And there's nothing that's like there's obviously a standard kind of like love story and stuff like that, but like it could have easily like boiled down to like a love triangle.
I mean, it's hard to even think of it as a standard love story because Haru is fucking everyone in the school.
It's true. Like all of those things.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many like ways of adjusting it. It's great. It's great. It's a 10 out of 10. I love it. Read the manga. It's good.
I mean, I probably will have to after the anime unceremoniously ends with no conclusion, inevitably, as they do.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do an anime original and just wrap everything up at the end of these 12 episodes. You know, Legoshi just kills Haru, and that's the end of the series.
I don't think generally anime does that anymore, just because it's so frowned upon.
And the whole season model that we're in now is weird, but that does seem to be the case. Hey, incidentally, I just saying I would fuck Juno. Juno, the like hot wolf girl. Now I noticed.
You go right for it, my dude.
She has big titties. Yeah. She has a way more fuckable face than Haru. Haru continually creeps me out with her big weird eyes, but Juno is definitely fuckable.
Nate, what did you think of that scene where it just fixates on her eyes and like the rest of her like dissipates and it's just her eyes?
Haru's right when she and Legoshi are looking into each other's eyes. Relatively horrible, relatively horrific.
I thought of you right away.
She just.
I mean,
there's the other rabbits.
It doesn't bother me nearly as much, I guess. I think it's one of those things where like the manga design, it makes sense.
I think that definitely is the worst thing to translate from the manga. To be fair, I haven't read any of the manga. I just kind of assume it looks better because it really just doesn't look good, in my opinion, on the 3D model. But then you've got girls in the show with way more just like normal anime girl eyes that are far less off-putting because that's like Haru's distinguishing characteristic, like her eye shape or the eye color.
I find the anime eyes more off-putting than Haru eyes. Like I find the fact that so many of them have just like regular glowy anime eyes to make them look ridiculous, especially like the dog, like his friend dog character.
Yeah,
I hate the way that guy's face looks.
Jack, right?
Jack looks way better in the manga.
In terms of Juno's fuckability, like, it's funny because they were like really. There was like a moment where they're like, "Oh, you know, she's really beautiful," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I had to have that told to me because I would not have assumed it.
That's the thing.
You can't tell by just the theme song that she's like the peppy,
it was so clear in the narrative they were setting her up to be the hot girl, but that was not why I think she's attractive.
I did not catch that until they said so. I literally would not have thought she was attractive at all until they were like, "Oh, she's beautiful," and I was just like, "Oh, really?"
You know what it is?
There is the scene where she's in the gym uniform,
and
I said of that scene, I was like, you know, I said, as long as I ignore all the parts outside the clothes, then I can think she's hot in this moment. Like, yeah, she's wearing booty shorts and a tight shirt. She's got big tits. Cool. But like everything outside of that, let's just pretend is not there.
Right.
Fair enough. Yeah. You know,
You're both furries.
We all have our
I don't find Juno attractive at all.
Well, that's your problem.
Don't lump me into this degenerate over here.
We all have a threshold.
There's
of how
so much fucking
accept.
fur. I can't take it.
Look, we all consult the charts, everybody. We're all attracted to general, normal human women. If you're a guy or gay, whatever, gay woman. But then there's a spectrum of how far deviated from that are you willing to go? Like, what about like dark elf? You know, weird tattoo girls from like Monster Girl Quest. That's like generally like a woman, right? But it's a little bit different. The ears are weird, the hair is weird, etc. You just go a little bit further, and suddenly you're in more and more furry. All I'm saying is that I have the fortitude.
I draw the line at snouts.
Well,
I don't want
that's a tough one.
snouts.
That's a tough one. But I have the heroic fortitude to simply survive farther and farther away from that median. I have the will within to do that. So that's it's not that I'm
Yeah.
into that. I just can handle it. That's
You don't
okay.
need to
That's
have
my
that
pitch.
will. Why do you?
Yeah.
Why
because
do you want to
I'm
be able to
too
handle it?
strong. It's not my fault.
He's a masochist, is what he is.
I'm just like Lugosi. I was born too powerful, and I have to currently limit my power level to make it normal society.
And Nate, and I'll say
Yeah.
that's true because, and I hinted I wanted to touch on this earlier, but like I really do think that a big part of what this show is talking about is rape and how as men you do have this like you as a man have the knowledge that you could overpower a woman easily and just fuck her if you wanted to. And when you're around a hot girl and you're catching all these fucking scents and vibes and all this shit, you just like the thought has to cross your mind like this is possible. But the reason that you don't do it is because you know that that's wrong, and therefore you go, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. And like in this show, that's basically what carnivores have to do constantly is like look at herbivores and go, it would be great if I could eat that bitch, but I'm not going to because that's a bad idea. Except for them, it's like way more difficult to make that decision.
Yeah,
you know?
and you know, not to this, and not to like discount the experience or anything, but it's notable that like the BEASTARS is written by a woman, and that kind of feeling of you know, honestly, I went through my life honestly like never having that thought like ever. I was just like a normal shy nerdy boy, just kind of like oh yeah whatever, I'm just be nice. But like at a certain point as I became an adult, then I was like oh now I get why like women get scared like walking alone at night.
Right.
It's starting to make sense to me. And like we really feel that fear in many of the characters here. And so the fact that this is written from a woman's perspective, which incidentally is the daughter of the guy who makes Baki the Grappler. I don't know if we mentioned it last time, but it's fucking sick. It makes a lot of sense. It feels like a female perspective may have informed that to a large degree. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's almost
Especially
like
when your dad is
more-
literally Baki the Grappler, and you know at any moment you could snap your fucking torso
Yeah.
in half. That's gonna do
I found it just to be very like empathetic towards that part of the male experience in a way that no other thing I've seen is. Where like, because again, like I said earlier, if the main character of this was a guy who was just thinking about his desire to like rape Haru, it would not come off the same way. And there are anime that are like that. There are anime that have characters who have those thoughts.
Rape
particularly,
Man
like,
for one, although he rapes for justice, as we
he
all know.
actually rapes. But I mean, Go Nagai, is somebody who would definitely work that into his stories or portray men that way. Not even sympathetically, just
Right.
because that's how he wants to present evil fucking characters. But there's not a lot of sympathy to be had for that kind of thing, even though like realistically somebody who is having those kind of thoughts and is suppressing them, it's kind of heroic in a way, or admirable that you are fighting your urges and being a good person in spite of the fact that your instincts are telling you otherwise.
That's
It's
very
like that
true.
age-old question, like what's the greater good, like doing something naturally or doing it in spite of wanting to do something else.
Which reminds me, of course, of the legendary Keg Standard review of Putting Your Hoof Down, in which Fluttershy is confirmed to be the most heroic pony because she doesn't give a fuck about her friends, but she deals with them despite her lower amount of tolerance for their bullshit. That's what makes a hero, everybody. Damn. That's a good video, by the way. It's,
Whatever
I
happened
just
to that
rewatched
guy?
that. I just watched that video recently, and I don't even remember that being a part of the message.
That's like
of
the
that
grand
video.
thesis of the video. That's why she's the element of kindness, because she hates everybody so much, and she's willing to deal with it despite her lower tolerance. That makes sure, like, the amount of agency she's exerting is disproportionately more than other people, if you believe in such things. Okay, but I was going to say that I agree with your point, and that's well said. And it kind of, like, I was going to say this before, but now perfectly relevant as well, that it does kind of remind me of kind of, there's very little sympathy for the plight of the incel in like today's society, and but really when you think about it, like of course we can understand a woman's perspective, or anybody's perspective of who's born weak and small and helpless, relatively speaking, to be afraid of people who could overpower them and take advantage of them in some ways. But also you've got to have some sympathy for people who, like, for example, your average person, your average psychopath who just has a tumor in their head that makes them want to commit murder. Okay, like, sure, and if you cut out the tumor, suddenly they're a great guy. okay, we can understand that that person isn't like responsible kind of for what they're doing. In the same way, like your average guy isn't responsible for the fact that he was programmed to want to fuck every woman in sight all the time. And so there's just a certain amount of sympathy you should have from like a larger moral like agency perspective,
or at least empathy.
At least empathy. At least empathy. That's true.
At least understand that that's what's going through that person's mind.
And that's like, cold comfort to the woman currently being raped. Understandable. But on the larger scale, a simple thank you would another
suffice. Thing. This show explores, and it's not just male and female, but also even there's race relation stuff in here too, where
although this show is extremely race realist, if that's the allegory we're going for.
Well,
statistics don't lie.
I don't mean between like all the different shit. Like, okay, yeah, I get what you mean, because only carnivores commit crimes in this world,
more or less.
Although we don't know how true that. I don't know if that's going to be true in the long run.
Maybe the top of the pyramid is an herbivore. Yeah, maybe an herbivore is orchestrating. Actually, that's literally the plot of Zootopia. That's exactly what happened in Zootopia. Right. So there you go. Just watch that, I guess.
But, like, there's the fact that when a crime is committed by a carnivore, it immediately, everybody is racist against carnivores.
Right.
Like, everybody's afraid of them. They're making fun of them. Like, there's news reports that people are getting eaten, and so now the new gray wolf at school is getting bullied. And, it's just like, I mean, the parallels are obvious, It's like when the news is constantly telling you that a certain type of people is committing crimes, then everybody starts to fear those people unless something is done about it, or people are given a reason to think that not everybody who's like that is dangerous, And so the show also explores that. It's just fascinating how many different allegories they could pack into this dichotomy.
Super cool. And it's also interesting because like you have the whole side, because we've been talking about like the carnivore side where like they have these urges to like kill herbivores and eat them and shit. But then on the herbivore side, they have like that scene with Haru when she's sitting with Legacy at lunch, and like she's like twitching because all of her instincts are telling her to just run the fuck away and like get away from this dude. So
I mean,
like
to
there's
be fair,
this
he did literally try to murder her once before, but she doesn't know that at the time, I guess.
But it just it talks about, I mean, the example was just more in general that like there's this entire society is under constant tension. It's kind of a miracle it's working as well as it is. And then it goes with the back alley market to be like, well, is it working in spite of anything, or is it just like an illusion to make everyone feel more comfortable? And then the mayor reinforces that. So it's just, there's some layers there.
The example of the mayor bringing up is kind of my favorite one, in that it kind of makes you question the fact that he had to like surgically alter himself in such a significant way, and it's explicitly done to make people like want to trust him more, while he has the knowledge of these underground like animal trafficking, killing murder rings. Like we found out about, well, okay, but no need to make it directly to humans, the fact they eat each other, but like it makes you question, like, is it even ethical to continue the society as it is now? Because it kind of seems like they're just supporting these power structures. Every society is going to have bad things that happen, but it makes you wonder.
I was about to say, you're doubting the society, and yet you participated. How curious.
Touche, my good man. Touche.
It's just part and parcel of living in a current major city,
It's fair to say that every society will have problems. There's no, so like maybe they tried all the other ones. They tried communism. They tried capitalism. They tried them all, and animalism turned out to be the best one. So they're giving that a try right now. I don't know, but I wonder when we see things like at the end, right? We've got the mayor talks to Lewis, and Lewis or Louis, whatever. He has basically decided, so it seems at this point in the story, like, okay, I will be complicit in the system so I can get ahead. I suspect he may have a change of heart. We'll see how that goes. While Lugosi is just like, no, fuck this. Like, I'm gonna go save her, even though he doesn't have all the information at hand. Nonetheless, he's clearly that kind of character. It makes you wonder. I don't know. Is this in any way justified? Anything that Lewis is doing? Is it a net good to support the system, to keep people safe and happy? Because when they go to the city, before they go to the black market or whatever, we can see that your average person seems to be doing fine. The herbivores and carnivores are living happily together. And it's like, is it worth sacrificing some lives so that most people can live happily? I don't know. Well, that's a tough moral question.
That's the perennial question we're constantly asking ourselves at all times by even running societies, because same thing happens IRL. But I think in this case, the mayor, I'm going to call him the Cowardly Lion, because
shit.
It's basically a coward's move to be like, I'm afraid that, saving this person or doing anything about this Shishigami will throw the city into greater chaos and do, like, we've got such good stability right now. But it's like, do you have good stability if people are getting kidnapped like this? Or could we have a better system if we did something about it? Maybe it's worth fighting through the chaos that might emerge from this in order to put a stop to this thing. And like, we can't say that this is good enough. Like, this is not good enough. Good enough would be that this is not happening.
Well, but I mean, the one issue I have with this is that this animal society is fundamentally different from human society. Maybe there's an internal intrinsic nature within humans to war with each other. Maybe we'll always have that instinct in us to a degree. I don't know. But there's no instinct in us to literally eat each other. There might be one to steal from each other or, control other people and gain power. But that's different from straight up murdering each other, for the specific pleasure of murdering each other. I'm sure there are some people who do that, but because that reality exists in the world of BEASTARS, that's the one fundamental reason it's different and hard to exactly superimpose onto our society, because that exists. I'm not exactly we've been questioning, is it even fucking possible or reasonable to expect a carnivore to not eat meat? This is their biological programming since forever. How much can you expect an animal to not act in accordance with its nature? I mean, more than 0, probably less than 100 though. So what's the correct amount? I don't know. It seems, and I think we can all agree that if effectively human sacrifice for the sake of this seems bad. We don't want to encourage that. But I mean, I don't know.
Another whole layer to even look at it in terms of the mayor is that he's talking about, when he's talking to Louis, about how we have to make these sacrifices for the greater good of society. But at the same time, we've seen society will turn on carnivores for the smallest infraction if he brings to light that there's all these lions and he's gone through all this effort to destigmatize lions. That puts himself in a bad situation. So how much of these actions are just him protecting his own ass and all the time and effort he's put into his own personal career?
I mean, I think a lot of it, and something that was interesting to me, because when they first showed that the mayor was a lion, I was shocked, because I was like, well, how can there be so much discrimination against carnivores if the mayor himself is a lion? How did they get away with that? And then, of course, we learn he fucking had his teeth replaced. He had his face heavily modified to look friendly. He is basically not he's not the type of carnivore that you would see on the street. So it's he's basically created the stability on the back of racism towards carnivores. He didn't make carnivores accepted. He made a sanitized version of
exactly. Society.
I wonder, politically speaking, if I think in the animal kingdom there's disproportionately more herbivores than there are the kind of apex predators, or even carnivores in general, because I mean every carnivore needs to survive off the livestock. So politically speaking, I wonder, I don't know if this, I think this might have been the case in Zootopia, are there way more herbivores than there are carnivores in society? So you have to kind of placate them if you're going to try to make your way up in a political way. I don't know if that's true, but maybe that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I feel it would have to be true for carnivores to not be just running roughshod over the whole fucking show.
You would think so. You would think so. Yeah.
Well, do you guys have any more thoughts on these 5 episodes we watched?
I have one thought, which is just it's kind of just a larger question about the conversation I've been hearing. I haven't looked around to see tons of reaction. I've looked at a couple threads on and I've been hearing some fairly serious discussion that a lot of people think this might be the best anime this season. And I thought that was interesting for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is it's such a differently animated show. And it's true, Hoseki no Kuni kind of introduced people to this work already, so maybe, and even people love that show that season as well. But I was wondering if you guys thought, I mean, I guess specifically you did, since you probably know more about what all the things that are playing this season. If you think that's, I don't know, surprising to you, or if you agree, or I don't know.
I'm not surprised because this show has so much dramatic weight and adult themes. I think that the fact that this show is CG is the only thing holding it back from being way more popular and talked about, and the fact that it's kind of furry on the surface. But like, you know, when I watched the first episode of this show, I thought this will be the biggest show this season. Like, I got the similar feeling to how I felt when I watched Made in Abyss, where I thought this is going to be the sleeper hit. This is the one that people are going to talk about. This is particularly because I knew the manga was already beloved on A, and if A continues to like something, it's probably still good. So, you know, I wouldn't say I'm surprised at all. I think that people are still really resistant to CG, and it's actually shocking to me because I made this video about the new Ghost in the Shell teaser where I was defending it, saying I thought it looked fine, basically. But I actually love CG anime. Like, I love CG animation. I love the way it looks in video games. I love well-done CG animated movies and shorts and stuff. Like, there's tons and tons of amazing CG works out there. I don't even, like, I get that most of the time CG in TV anime looks bad, but the problem isn't the CG, it's that it looks bad. But it seems like people have developed like such a distaste for it because of that people are just like on its face, like, against CG. And even though like Hoseki no Kuni was beloved by everybody who saw it, it was not the most popular show. It's the kind of fans who got into it, I don't even think it was necessarily super popular with specifically anime fans, like hardcore anime fans. I think it had more to do with, like, you know, Tumblr and other crowds of people who, you know, like certain shows, and that was one of those certain shows. I think this show has a similar kind of reputation, except that it also, you know, being based on a manga that was beloved by a place like A, and having a story that is violent and relatable and has more sexual content than average. I think it has more adult themes. I think it has the ability to appeal to way more people than like the average anime does. So as long as people get past the CG and start watching the show, I think it has potential to be extremely popular and extremely beloved. Is it my favorite anime of the season? I would have to put it against like Babylon and Blade of the Immortal, you know, the other stuff that we gave Best New Anime to. There's a few other great things airing this season. Like, this is a pretty strong anime season. But I wouldn't blame anybody for this being their favorite of the season at all.
How fitting that a show all about prejudice is in a style that people are prejudiced against.
Oh.
Wow.
It's all themes.
Holy
It's all themes all the way down.
shit. Really makes
I can't imagine anybody, like, because the stigma with CG is that, like, oh, it's done to be cheap. It's done to be easy. And, like, to some extent that's true, but it's not that it's done to be cheap because they're always, like, animating normal stuff. It's like, in the case of BEASTARS, it would be really fucking hard to 2D animate a bunch of fucking creatures, you know? Like, there's a lot of detail in these designs. This would not be an easy show to animate. And they're by no means being lazy with the 3D. Like, the mouth movements are all accurate and great looking. Characters move all the time. There's tons of inventive cinematography, camera movement, unique visuals.
Watched,
the OP has a fucking stop motion sequence in it. Like,
fucking
come on.
Like the interesting thing too is that, like, I don't know if you guys watched any of like the behind the scenes or how it was done for Hoseki no Kuni. Like, it's all in Japanese and stuff, so it's hard to follow. But like, it's not the way that Orange does this, and like this is the way that like a lot of like people who are big into trying to emulate 2D and 3D work, is that it's not just make a model, animate it. Like, there are like rigs that they do on the faces and stuff that depending, like, they have drivers that depending on where the camera is proportionate to the character, the face will actually twist and distort to better emulate the fake perspective that they use in traditional like 2D animation. So there's tons of extra work that goes into making these characters look more 2D than they would just by modeling. Like, the modeling just the beginning part. It's fucking insane.
With the weird head shapes of so many of the characters, I would guess it's probably even more complicated. Since these are all so unique.
It's a lot. Like, I mean,
and let's think about even just how many models they had to make for the show. I mean, there's tons of unique creatures in this show.
There are some times where they'll use 2D. Like, there's a couple, like, when characters are only in a couple shots, they'll be 2D characters, which makes a lot of sense. But there's like a ton.
It's not even really that
cast.
noticeable.
No, it's not. Unless you're looking for it, it's not that drawing. Like, there's a shot in when what's her name?
Juno?
The wolf girl. Juno. When Juno comes into the club and calms everybody down and like makes them all happy and shit because they were all like kind of on edge. Like a bunch of the characters in that group shot were 2D and she was 3D. And it wasn't really all that jarring unless you're really looking for it.
I didn't notice.
I did not even notice.
Yeah, like the hippo's 2D. The hippo's been 2D, and like the giraffe, I think, has been 2D this entire time. So there are a couple characters that are just 2D.
I straight didn't even realize. I wasn't looking closely enough, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think that this show clearly has like an exceptional amount of effort into it, put into it, like tons of different lighting effects, backgrounds, special shit. It looks great a lot of the time. No reason to hate on it for being CG. If you hate on it because you prefer the way the manga looks, that is totally understandable because the manga is also really high effort artistry for its own medium, but it's just a different medium. But
that's a distinct thing than just rejecting CG for the sake of CG.
Right.
Of course.
I mean, I think straight adapting BEASTARS in 2D with the aesthetic of the manga would be incredibly difficult and probably wouldn't work very well.
There's always loss of stuff when you try to adapt anything with, like, I mean, even the most basic art styles suffer. I mean, when you adapt anything to anime, there's always things that are lost just because of the nature of the medium's changing. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be, they had to make some hard choices. This is their choice. And so far, they've been capitalizing pretty well. So I'm happy. Good show. Like it so far. Go watch it. It's my recommendation.
All right. Well, I think we're wrapping up this KHANTEHNT then.
KHANTENT.
Tom, our special guest, plug everything you want to plug to your KHANTENT audience here.
Yeah, if you like my KHANTENT, I have more KHANTENT on I Am Games, which me and Digi worked on for a while, and I'm still pumping out KHANTENT 4. I also am making a video game called Izumi. Follow me on Twitter at Tommy Oliver Says. You can get updates on that. And I'm doing 3D animation of my own, which will be coming out eventually. Hooray.
Indeed.
And our stuff's already down there. You know what it is.
Yeah, our shit's all in the description. Link to. I've applied for us to make a new Project 2 page. It's not up yet. But we're gonna fucking go for it. There were a couple people who said that they would do it, so I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it, dog.
Why not?
So look forward to that. I thought it would be up by the time we recorded this, but it's not. So.
And that means bonus content will be produced, people. So
yes, I mean I already have a couple of videos that I can make. That's the main reason I want to launch it, is because I already have bonus content to release. Right. So yeah. We will do that at the earliest convenience. We'll probably announce it in the next video. It'll probably be done by then.
How fun.
That's it.
Thanks for being here,
don't forget to look at our schedule on the About page if you want to watch the shows with us. Currently, there is, as of this recording, nothing is listed there. But by the time you watch this, we should have some stuff listed there. We caught up to all the shit we had scheduled, so...
You know what we should maybe do, Digi? We should make a page somewhere and have like a website we can link to. Maybe what we do is we just have a Google Doc linked from. I don't know, something.
We have KHANTEHNT.com. It currently just
right.
links to the YouTube page, I think,
yeah,
or the Reddit. I might have linked it to the Reddit, but yeah. Maybe we'll make a website of KHANTEHNT.com.
Just like a page where we can at least the schedule so people know what's coming up or something. I don't know, whatever. We'll get to it in time. Thanks for being here, everybody. Bye.